Good morning. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about empathy. We have multiple varieties of empathy, and the more clear we are with what variety we're dealing with, the more accurate we can be, the more we can talk about it and learn about it. So we have intellectual empathy. This is perhaps the most prevalent currently form of empathy because it doesn't require a whole lot of genuine presence. Intellectual empathy is basically thinking about what it's like to be someone else, to imagine what someone else's problem is. And so this is a general first step. If someone has an inability to connect with someone else, we can imagine what it's like to be the other person we're trying to connect with, and that can help us figure out how to. So after the intellectual empathy, when we have emotional empathy, and this is where we have a feeling in response to other people's feelings. And so, this can be an emotional reaction. I think most commonly it's an emotional reaction. But when someone else is feeling a way and we want to be supportive, that's an emotional empathy. And this is a really genuine type of empathy. It requires emotional effort. It requires that we open up emotionally and allow emotionally, whereas intellectual empathy requires that we put forth intellectually, that we open up intellectually and we put effort forth intellectually. So we have intellectual, emotional empathy, and then we have somatic empathy, where we literally feel each other's feelings. We feel what other people are experiencing. We maybe use in combination with our minds and our emotions to give context. So we know that if someone if we are feeling someone else is feeling frustrated and we're about to sit down and have a conversation with them, we can extrapolate some data there and we can say, okay, this person probably has a charge. They're probably going to need some soothing, some support and comforting to even get to the point where they're able to express themselves comfortably. So we can learn a lot from somatic empathy has a lot to offer. Intellectual empathy has very little to offer. We can kind of imagine a little bit. Somatic empathy is good because we can start to ground in and experience other people's feelings, but it's still intellectual and emotional empathy are still very limited forms of empathy because they don't take higher functioning and higher reasoning into consideration. They're just very raw and primal. Somatic empathy is kind of an open book because what we choose to do about our feelings and about how we feel other people's feelings is a really big deal. It's like most of what it means to be alive on this planet is how we respond to our feelings and how we respond to other people's feelings. So basically, the more we can do to study this and integrate this, the more we can become familiar with this and the different types of empathy. Empathy is required for communication. If we don't have empathy and communication, we quickly devolve into a system where no one is really getting their needs met. And that's kind of the matrix that we're in right now, is no one getting their needs quite met. Just enough to survive, not enough to really thrive. So what we really want to do is focus on what our needs are and what other people's needs are around us and start creating solutions. We don't have a system that's going to create solutions for us. We have a system that's going to make sure we have just enough problems to keep us from getting anywhere. So creating solutions is up to us. If we have a problem in our community, in our family, in our social circle, wherever it is, it's up to us to create the solution. Going to local city council with proposed change is about the best thing we can do politically. I have very little comprehension of how people in this system have an effect on politics large scale. I don't see, I've been following this for many, many years, and I've been talking with a lot of other smart people about this, and I don't see any direct link between what people want and what the government provides. So it's really up to us to do this. Like the little free library is a good example of people saying, hey, we don't want books to go in the landfills. We want people to still be able to read them, and there's no institution that's doing this. The libraries are closing down. My local library had to shut down altogether for a couple weeks, and then that was a couple years ago, and then now they're just not open every day of the week. And I know a number of libraries in small communities completely shut down and are either now still shut down or entirely run by volunteers. Yes, public libraries entirely funded and run by volunteers from the community. So this is no longer a public this is a community library. It's still running off under the official auspice of being a public public library, but it is 100% funded and operated by volunteers. This is what the new now is about. This is people stepping up and doing what they're supposed to do. When we're good at something, we're able to do it, we're compelled to do it. We want to do it. We want to be good at doing it. We want a lot of people to benefit from what we're good at doing. This is a natural compulsion. This is a healthy compulsion. This is what civilization thrives on. People being good at what they do and wanting to share. We all want to do this. We all want to go out to the playground and say, hey, I learned this trick. Look at how awesome this is. Let's all do this now. This is a natural part of being alive. We've been convinced somehow that we're not able to provide for ourselves, that we need people that are mean to us to provide for us, which, a big hoax that's being sustained for a long time. It's not gonna go on for much longer, because everybody's starting to wake up a little bit and realize how ridiculous it is. If people can't get basic goods and services to people, then what function is a government serving? I mean, they're preventing goods and services getting from people. They're not helping goods and services. The modern financial system is based on slavery, and we have countries that do relatively fine on their own until we get involved with them, give them a bunch of money, give them a bunch of loans, and then start charging them interest, and then they're like, wait a second, how am I in debt now? What's wrong with this situation? I know World War II was started over this financial reasons. A lot of complicated reasons. There's a lot going on in that war, but one of the big things is Germany's like, hey, we're a poor, starving country. We were demolished in another war, and now we have virtually no autonomy and no economic autonomy, and like everyone else, we have central banks in our country ruling our country. So not only do we have sanctions against us, but we also have the central bank. So one of the big impetus of rallying support is saying, hey, we're going to kick out the central banks and start our own economy, which is a great idea. It's a big idea, and so a lot of times big ideas gets misused, but I think this is a big idea that we can all remember. We can all create local forms of economy. We can all support our local forms of economy. Supplying for demand because we can is one of the most genuine things that we can do. If we can identify a need and identify a way that we can meet that need with relative ease or at a large scale, being professional teaches us about being efficient and effective. So just because we're doing something because we love it doesn't mean we can't be efficient and effective. We can still have workplace ethics without having people being mean to us, or without having a payment system. We really don't need a payment system. When we're all on the same page together, when we're all living in a community and we all benefit from what each other are doing, then we don't have much of a reason to try to not do what we're supposed to be doing, because we tangibly feel the benefit of what we're doing. And if we have a problem, we have a whole community of people we can go to. Again, these are the kinds of things that we're actively fed manipulation and lies to disbelieve this kind of stuff, to disbelieve the fact that we will all get along if we really try. We've been programmed with all this toxicity that says, hey, look, human nature's awful. You'll all just try to hurt yourselves and steal from each other and kill each other unless us government step in and prevent you from hurting each other. We'll put you in jail and we'll keep you in line so that you don't hurt yourself too much. Again, an elaborate hoax. It's been laid out over a number of years, thousands of years, in fact. People have been talking about this for thousands of years, about the hoax of control, the illusion of control. So the true nature of power is in our third chakra. It's our solar chakra. It is our personal power. This is the power we have over ourselves, because we are amazing machines. We are amazing computers, biological, and we can do amazing things. But we have to have our personal power. We have to have the ability to recognize our identity, our needs, survival needs, our emotions, our relation, and say, yes, these are all important, but they are less than my higher functioning. I'm not going to let my survival needs and my emotions get in the way of my higher functioning. I am going to create what I love in this life. I'm not going to be held back by the way I feel and think about things. This is the most important thing we can do. This is basically a big aspect of waking up. We do not need to be ruled by our thoughts and our feelings. So basically, unplugging from all sources of media is crucial. It's step number one, because as Orwell and many other people predicted, TV is used for a lot of things, but primarily, the top it down, it's used as emotional manipulation, and there's just so many ways to emotionally manipulate through media that it's, I could spend the rest of my life just talking about how manipulative marketing and media have merged and created an accelerated version of manipulation, basically. It's a mass brainwashing. If you ever saw the movie 1984, I only saw a little bit of it, but there's scenes where they're all watching a giant screen of people they're supposed to hate, and emotional manipulation. So Orwell is just like, yeah, we'll all be staring at screens that tell us how to feel, and based on how we feel, we will be told what to think, because feelings are more intense than thoughts, and thoughts cause feeling. Manipulation basically is much more difficult if we have personal power over ourselves. So if we control our emotions, we don't let other things control our emotions. It takes a lot of effort, it can take a lot of willpower to find that, but practicing it, it's like the most valuable skill we'll have. Things like hunger, we have personal power over hunger. We don't have to let hunger tell us what to do. We're, trained to be slaves to our hunger because it's part of the system. It's easy to control people if they're dependent on things. Food, we're told we need a lot of food, and we're told we need certain kinds of food, and we need protein, and we need mineral supplements, and we need all these different things. In reality, we need fresh live food. Our bodies are alive, and we need alive food. The more alive food we eat, generally the better we're going to feel. There's nutrition and digestion is a very wide subject that I've studied extensively, but what it comes down to is alive food is necessary. We might need minor balances to get us to a balanced state, but generally eating processed food of all form is devoid of life, so it's not really doing our bodies much good. Calories, it's not really a very accurate system of telling us anything. Calories are fine if you're talking about starting a fire in a closed system. Then you want to know the caloric exchange, and you want to know all those little details if you have a closed system. But the human body is so dynamic, counting calories doesn't even make sense. That's not how it works. Scientists are confused how native people survived for thousands of years because they seem to put out more calories than they got from their food. Like, come on, it's empirical evidence. Why fixate on calories when we know it's just a ridiculous system? I'll just touch briefly on the complexity and the nature of digestion. We have food that moves through our system very easily and has a lot of nutrients, and that's what our body's used to. And then we have food that doesn't move through our system very well and doesn't have a whole lot of nutrients, and that's what our body doesn't like. And that stuff gets stuck in our gut. That's what causes weight gain and digestive problems. Basically, grain shouldn't be eaten. It's a weird thing, but grain, very small amounts of seed grains of millet and quinoa and amaranth and things like that, they should be soaked and rinsed and everything. There's a lot of information, but basically grains aren't very good for humans. Very small amounts prepared in just the right way. Fresh fruits and vegetables are just the best. It's what our bodies want. I'll touch briefly on meat. Meat gives us a lot of things that we need. If we're not conscious enough to figure out what our bodies need, meat is a catch-all. It's just saying, I don't know what I need, but an animal figured it out, so I'll just eat the animal. So basically, yes, it feels satiating, it gives us what we need, but yes, and are we ready to evolve to the point where we don't need to unnecessarily kill other mammals just to eat them? We don't have to kill other animals to eat them. We currently choose to do this. So I have no problem with eating meat. I just think it's barbaric. I think it's unconscious. It's low conscious to be killing other mammals because we want to eat them. If we had to eat them, then I don't have a problem with it. If we're out living in nature and we're killing animals as well as whatever else we can eat, and we're being really respectful about it, then I don't have a problem with it. But I think that the modern meat industry is about as far from respect as we can get, and I don't see a single justification for eating meat other than we're in progress trying to figure out what our bodies need, and we're using it as a supplement until we get all the things that our bodies need. But it's just absolutely ridiculous that we have so much propaganda and programming telling us that we need to eat meat and that protein is super important. Protein is kind of important, but I actually have been increasing my muscle mass pretty steadily for the last 6 months and decreasing my protein intake very rapidly. I eat very little protein right now. I used to eat a lot of protein, and it used to help me a lot, but now I've found other solutions, lots of fresh food. Spiritual practices feed us, so I've found that even more than changing my diet, just having consistent spiritual practice and really feeling the growth from it has opened me up to new ways of being. biologically, physiologically, there are changes that have happened where I don't get that kind of faded, dizzy feeling from not having protein anymore. Every once in a while I feel like a lacking in my muscles, and I feel like I need a lot of turbocharge. I need a lot of minerals, but I don't feel that lacking anymore from lack of protein, which is beautiful. I feel much more freed, because before I felt like I was kind of like on a leash, on a protein leash. If I didn't eat enough protein by a certain amount of time every day, then I would start to have symptoms. But anyways, wonderful to overcome that. So again, empathy ties into here. When we're conscious enough that we can figure out our diets, and we're conscious enough to have empathy, any type of empathy, somatic, intellectual, or emotional, we find that eating meat is not optimal. Again, I don't have a judgment around this. If people are eating meat, and I have mixed different thoughts about that, but I'm not going to say it's just flat out bad to eat meat. I am going to say that it's not as conscious to eat meat. And if we want to be expanding our consciousness, stopping eating meat is one of the fastest things we can do. Having a daily spiritual practice and not eating meat are just two things that elevate us so quickly. We can grow so much so quickly by just doing these two things. And again, with any kind of dietary change, it's good to do it slow and well planned. So you really want to know where you're getting what you need. You want to really we want to be adding things to our diet and figuring out what we need that way, rather than just be taking things away. Anyways, so quickly touching on empathy again, it's what makes the world go round. It's what makes civilization thrive. Anticipating need and providing need, and being able to experience what it's like for other people, allow us to be in synchronicity more. Empathy is really important in the workplace, because we need to be able to feel inside the system and be able to allow the system to flow. Professionalism is kind of its own form of empathy, where everybody is kind of buying into this empathetic system of professionalism. Everybody is kind of making compromises and doing things different to allow a system to flow. So this is almost like a system empathy. We're having empathy for a system that works. Rather than having empathy for individuals, we're having empathy for a collective system of us all working together. All right, a little bit of Gayatri. Satyam. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Gadevasya Nyayana Prachodayat Pujayati Rasam Ratam Brahmabhuvarasvaram Shanti Shanti Shanti. And 3-part breath, 5 or 10 seconds in, 5 or 10 seconds hold and relax, 5 or 10 seconds slow, controlled exhale, and have a wonderful morning.